No one is born a child of God. So how do we become God's child? In Romans chapter 8, it tells us that we only chose God because God first chose us. God's Spirit lives in us. And because God lives in us, we now are able to call him Father. Let me tell you a story to help us understand what it means to be an adopted child of God. 2 boys came to live in the orphanage. These boys were the same age and soon became good friends. They did everything together. When one boy wanted to bat, the other would bowl. And when one wasn't feeling so well, the other would bring him water to drink. And when one came first in a race, the other would cheer, "Yay!" These boys were inseparable. They became the best of friends. One day, a young couple came to the orphanage, and of all the children in the orphanage, the couple chose these 2 boys. They chose these 2 boys to take home with them. The boys were thrilled. They quickly packed their bags, hopped into the car, and drove away from the orphanage. But it wasn't long after they arrived at their new home that things began to change. Instead of doing everything together, the boys began to turn on each other. When one boy wanted to bat, the other refused to bowl. And when one boy wasn't feeling so well, the other didn't seem to care. And when one came first in a race, the other would storm off into his room. The boys spent more and more time alone in their rooms till finally they stopped speaking altogether. The young couple were so confused. The boys had been the best of friends at the orphanage, and now they were hardly speaking. So they called the boys out of their rooms and sat them down. They asked them to explain what had changed. They were such good friends, and now they treated each other like the enemy. The boys sat there in silence, till finally one boy cried out, "Please don't send me back." The other boy cried out, "Please don't send me back." The young couple were so confused. Why would they think they'd be sent back to the orphanage? Finally, the boys began to explain. They shared how they'd seen other couples come to the orphanage and take children home to be with them. But after a while, they would always bring one child back to the orphanage, one that they decided not to keep. The young couple was shocked. They lovingly looked in the eyes of the 2 boys. They explained that the adoption papers had been signed, that everything they owned they now shared with them, that they had chosen them because they wanted them to be a part of their family. The boys looked up into the kind and loving eyes of a mum and a dad. And from that day onwards, the boys, they were no longer friends. They were brothers. Brothers who had a mum and a dad who'd chosen them, who shared everything they owned with them, and who would never, ever let them go. No one is born into God's family, but God, in his kindness, adopts us into his family. And if you trust in Jesus, then you are God's child. And that means 3 wonderful things. That you get to call God Dad, that God shares everything he owns with us, and God will never, ever let you go. Once you've been adopted by God, you can never be unadopted. If you are God's child now, you are God's child forever.